Hey, yo, YouTube, what's good? Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, a channel dedicated to the support of men's mental health and awareness. You see the thumbnail in today's topic of discussion. What is scarcity and truths you should know? This video is not for the faint of heart. If you are up for some insight, let's get into it.
I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Welcome back. Something I've noticed with us men and even experienced myself is the difficulty we have leaving a situation that no longer benefits us. This can be relationships, friendships, or even employment choices. One thing for certain in these situations, we are being treated poorly or unfairly. However, taking full accountability and not blaming victimhood, our response is to accept the poor treatment and even attempt to prove ourselves even more to gain admiration or acknowledgement in these situations. In some spaces, I hear it's having a scarcity mindset or one-itis. I think it's deeper than that. The relationships we accept come from our attachment styles, which are formed through conditioned or learned behavior as children. So, what does this all mean? Basic answer: the type of care we receive from our parents or caregivers at an early age sets our foundation for future relationships. If we are exposed to being a caregiver for family members or grow up around members in addiction, we can unknowingly develop codependent habits. So let me break this down a little bit. Being a caregiver. So normally in a that situation, the roles are reversed. Usually the child becomes the caregiver of normally a sick parent, sick family member, and the responsibilities of taking care of the family is solely rests on that person. It also can be a financial situation where maybe the parent isn't financially stable or the household isn't financially stable, so they depend on the income of the child or part of the child's income to kind of help support the family in their time of distress. And growing up, having the role of caregiver being placed on you can be extremely difficult. It's a lot of expectations to live up to. I know I've heard many times, growing up in single parent homes, especially single mother parent homes, being called or being told to be the man of the house and not really understanding what that role entails because there's no one there to really teach you what being the man of the house is. So, that's a lot of expectations to live up to when it's not really fully explained, what being the man is. So that can also impact us as well. Then there's the addiction aspect, growing up around family members who are struggling with addiction and just trying to have a healthy relationship or any type of relationship with that family member can unknowingly develop codependent habits. So, what is codependency? And for those who are not sure or never even heard of the term before, codependency is a learned emotional and behavioral condition passed throughout generations. It causes relationship addictions that are one sided, emotionally destructive, or abusive. I'll also put the link in the description box where I got this information from. So if you're interested in reading up more on this, definitely take a look at it. So, what is the similarities between codependency and having a scarcity mindset? Well, a lot of times in those situations, those individuals are used to being in one sided relationships. And normally they're at the bottom end of the relationship. They're so used to giving so much of themselves to their detriment that they're okay with it. They're fine with making sure that everyone is being taken care of instead of taking care of themselves. Pretty much like a people pleasing type of mentality. The emotionally destructiveness, I'm pretty sure you guys have either experienced it or seen someone else experience it, where you've seen couples in this emotionally destructive type of dynamic where they're always arguing, maybe verbally escalating, arguing, fighting, verbally fighting. It can lead to physical, but just a lot of destruction, discourse within that dynamic, yet they still stay together. They'll be arguing today and they'll be back together tomorrow. So, just that kind of back and forth dynamic. And the last part is the abusive part of the relationship where it can turn verbally or physically abusive, and the person decides to stay, despite everything that's going on, despite maybe friends and family members are telling them they need to leave this type of relationship. For some reason, they cannot leave this relationship. So that's some of the ways that codependency can be related to one-itis, is just having this mindset that you can't do better. You have to fix it. You have to stay in this relationship. You have to stick it through to the end, even though this situation is definitely impacting you in a negative way. So if you or someone you know is struggling with a scarcity mindset, how can you tell if codependent behavior is a possible cause? Let's talk about the common signs of codependency. But first, if you stuck around this far, hit the like and subscribe button for support with the YouTube algorithm. I really appreciate it. Number one, a deep seated need for approval from others. And I know you've probably seen this on different social media platforms about the dating market right now, and how most guys are taking women out on these expensive foodie call dates. And why do you think that is? That's because, they need to get approval from the female by taking them out on these extravagant, fancy dates, and they've never even met them a day in their life. Yet they're going all out trying to show this woman what they can do for her approval. Which leads into number two, self worth that depends on what others think about you. So this is basically a situation where you're leading with your wallet, leading with finances, leading with accomplishments, anything that makes people see you in a super positive light, or just a positive light at all, because you care about what people think about you. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't highlight your accomplishments and the things that you have done successfully in your life. However, there's a difference when you're leading with those things versus allowing the person to get a chance to know you and find out these things about you. You're showing those things off the top, kind of like bragging or hey, look at me type of situation, because you want to get that person's approval because you care about what they think about you. Number three, a habit of taking on more work than you can realistically handle, both to earn praise or lighten a loved one's burden. So, this is a situation where I guess when you say the term, you bit off more than you can chew. So, this is a situation where you're just taking on the bulk of their responsibilities. And this can be like in a relationship or a workplace scenario where, you're really good at your job and people know you're good at your job and they're really quick to throw some extra work on you, like, hey, you're really good at this, can you help me out with this, or can you take on this extra task for me, I really can't handle it. And you'll do it even though you understand that it's definitely going to be something hard for you to accomplish or maintain. You'll still do it just to get praise or get that acknowledgement that you were able to handle all of that expectation that were put on you. Number four, a tendency to apologize or take on blame in order to keep the peace. So this is a situation where, and I'm pretty sure you've experienced it before, where someone is always apologizing, even for the simplest of things. Like someone may bump into you and it could have been your fault. And they're like, oh, sorry, 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 just real passive and apologetic. Or it could be a situation where you're okay with taking the blame in order to keep the peace. So that can be you're in a relationship and this person, whoever you're in a relationship with, whether it's short term, long term, marriage, whatever the case may be, that they're blaming you for something wasn't your fault, but just to keep the argument from escalating or just to stop the argument from continuing. You're like, okay, yep, it was my fault. I did it. What do you need me to do? Just trying to keep the peace, which takes us to number five, a pattern of avoiding conflict. And I think this is like I spoke about earlier, where you just have this passive type of attitude where, you just try to stay out of people's way, you avoid conflict, uh, everything. Even if something is going against you and you don't like it, you still will go along with it just to avoid the conflict. So pretty much just going along to get along. Number 6, a tendency to minimize or ignore your own desires. This is a huge one. This is normally like in a situation, if you're in a relationship, whether a situationship, long-term relationship, where you are asking for intimacy from your partner, and they hit you with the, oh, not tonight, have a headache, or not tonight, have cramps. And you're like, okay, you take the L on that one, and then maybe you come back the next week or a couple of weeks later, and the person says, is that all you want from me? Is that all you think about? And in this situation, you might be like, no, 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 that's not what I want, knowing damn well you want some intimacy. And if you guys check out my last video on toxic relationships, this is definitely a shaming tactic. Now, don't get me wrong, definitely you want to respect the boundaries of your partner when it comes to intimacy. However, if this person is not willing to acknowledge your desires or the intimacy that you would like to have in that relationship, then you need to run, especially if they're trying to use or weaponize intimacy against you. You definitely need to run in that scenario. Like, get far away from that relationship as you can. Next one, excessive concern about a loved one's habits or behaviors. So, this could be a situation where, you have those, I don't like to say the word, but they like to say insecure guys who are, they like to keep tabs on their girl. They might have her show her location or have a location on all the time, checking her DMs or her text messages and stuff like that. And, I've seen some different YouTube videos on how to approach this, and some of them I agree and disagree with. However, I think in this situation, you know, there's nothing that you can do. If a person wants to leave, they're going to leave. There's no amount of blocks, there's no amount of checks that you can do that can keep a person engaged in a relationship with you. So I think this also goes to control, being wanting to control the relationship, control that person's behaviors or habits. So yeah, so this person is definitely going to have excessive concerns. Where you at? Where you been? I called you. Calling this person excessively, is definitely a lot of codependent behavior. Next one, a habit of making decisions for others or trying to manage loved ones. So this goes back to what I just previously talked about. Having that control factor. Wanting to make decisions or trying to manage. Situations of someone. And I know a lot of times we have this desire to want to fix things and correct things. However, sometimes things aren't able to be fixed, or sometimes we're not able to fix a lot of situations, or sometimes people don't want to take the advice that we give them, and we have to be okay with that. However, in this situation, this person will definitely want to manage or make the decisions that they think will be best suited in that situation. Next up, a mood that reflects how others feel rather than your own emotions. So this could be a situation, and I don't know if you guys ever experienced it or ever seen it, where it might be a disagreement between two people, a couple, let's just say a couple, and the disagreement starts out pretty okay, but then the female escalates in voice or verbally, and then the guy escalates, and then it's just they're just matching each other. They just keep going up and up and up and up. So that would be the mood that reflects how others feel. She's upset, so now because she's upset, now you're upset. So it shows that she has the ability to control your emotions. And I think a really famous situation is the Will Smith slap. Looking at the videos, he was okay and fine, laughing when the jokes were being played on Jada. And as soon as she looked it upset, he looked at her, he got upset, and he reacted. So that can definitely be showing how our feelings are reflected off of those of other people. Also, I think it's important too as men that, as being the leaders, as being able to have the capacity to lead, that we are to practice responding versus reacting. Reacting is just going what's happening in the moment. Responding is taking time to reflect and taking precise judgment to respond to that particular situation. Next up, guilt or anxiety when doing something for yourself. I know I struggle with this, but definitely have gotten better with it. So basically, take a time out and do something for yourself. Sometimes they call it buyer's remorse. When you do something for yourself and there's just something nagging at you where you think that you're doing something just totally evil because you're doing something for yourself. And that's definitely not the case. Guys, take time, you work hard, you're out here grinding every day. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you do things that you enjoy. Take time out for yourself. That's definitely a huge aspect of self-care. So make sure that you do things for yourself. I don't care what it is. Do something for yourself every week if you can, or once a month, or however you can afford to do it. And it could be something as simple as getting a haircut, treating yourself to a nice meal, buying you something to wear, buying some cologne. It doesn't matter. Do something for yourself because a lot of times, we are so focused on helping and doing things for other people that we neglect ourselves. So, just make sure that you're doing something for yourself as well. Next up, doing things you don't really want to do simply to make others happy. So I think that kind of goes back to what we talked about before, taking on more than you can realistically handle. However, in this case, it kind of goes hand in hand where, you're doing something that you really don't want to do. It could be something where, maybe people are constantly asking you for favors and you're doing it because maybe you're cool with them or their loved ones, or maybe they do need the support. However, they just keep asking you over and over and over again. Or maybe they're asking you to financially support them. They keep asking you to borrow money or take them places or watch their kids or whatever the case may be. However, it's something that you really don't want to do, yet you'll do it just so that they can be happy. And I think I talked about this before in my last video where I talked about you're not responsible for someone's emotions. So yeah, you're definitely not responsible for if someone's happy or sad. You're not responsible for someone's happiness. So in this case though, when someone has a codependent behavior or habits, they absolutely believe that they have to make someone happy. And that goes back to the people pleasing mentality. Next up, idealizing partners or loved ones, often to the point of maintaining relationships that leave you unfulfilled. So that goes back to what I spoke about earlier about the cycle of relationships where someone is breaking up and they make up, break up, make up, break up, make up, and they're not happy in that relationship yet. They have nowhere else to go, or they think they have nowhere else to go, or they think they have no one else they can be compatible with. Yet, so they stay in this cycle of harmful relationships. This can also be the part where someone can be in a relationship and they're afraid to leave. They don't think that they can do better. I think that also goes to the quote unquote one-itis. They don't think they can do better. They don't think there's any person out in the world that can possibly treat them better or be good for them. So they decide to stay in this unfulfilling relationship. That also goes to marriages. People stay married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or maybe even longer. And, they're not happy in those relationships at all. Yet, they stay in them. Some men, they dread going home. They'd rather go to the bar or wherever else, or sit in the parking lot or sit in their garage in their car, rather than go home and face the person that they married to or face, their partner. So it's terrible. It's a terrible situation. And last but not least, an overwhelming fear of rejection or abandonment. And I think this sums up all of these habits because there is a fear of abandonment, there is a fear of rejection, and I think that is what constitute to people staying in unhappy situations, unhappy relationships, because they think this person is going to reject them, or maybe they think the next person is going to reject them. Like if this person accepted me, then maybe the next person won't accept me. Or the abandonment. Say like if the person, they're in a relationship with a partner and the partner wants to leave, they're no longer happy, and they express desires to leave, they might see that as abandonment, and they might try to do whatever it is to control that person to stay. And that might be taking them on trips, that might be buying them things, just trying to win them over when they already made up their mind that they're ready to go. And the person may stay around, to collect those benefits, but at the end of the day, their heart is not really in it. So it's just it's pointless gestures. So listen up. A scarcity mindset is extremely harmful to your overall wellness. Retraining your brain will be difficult and will take consistency, yet the rewards are indescribable. Unfortunately, it will also mean losing some relationships. Those were the people who were benefiting from you. What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comment section. If you gain any value from our video, stay locked for more content by reviewing the next video. Stay resilient.